Let's get hyped. Welcome into the Husker247 HypeCast. I am Mike Schaefer, joined by Michael Bruntz, Brian Christopherson, and this week's special guest from The Athletic, Max Olson, making his Husker247 HypeCast debut. Max, how you doing today?
I'm good. This is an honor. Appreciate you guys having me on.
It is a big honor. I mean, it's a well-known fraternity here in the Nebraska media. Congratulations on breaking barriers and being the first member of The Athletic. I don't think we've had Mitch Sherman on. It's probably an oversight on our part.
There must be some beef there. Guys, how's the week going? How you doing?
Pretty good. Golf game's not great, but pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm hanging in there. There's been a little bit of material to cover, so that keeps us on our toes.
Yeah. Yeah, they're even changing up the off days and stuff, kind of throwing some little curveball in your season. I mean, that's for us people of routine, I could see that being a little challenging going forward.
Really messes with a guy like Bruntz. You can kind of see it on his face right now. It's been a disturbing week for him.
Just worn down. Bruntz is definitely a man of routine.
Yeah.
He needs those 3 a.m. football games on Saturday, or he's not going to be happy.
That's true. I've been going back over that Georgia Southern film, so I'm ready to chat.
All right, let's do it. All right, so on the HypeCast, we dive into a little bit on the offense, a little bit on the defense, and then we get into some predictions. We'll start here on the offensive side of the ball. Max, you knew Casey Thompson far more than any of the three of us when you watched him with Texas over the years. You've now seen him in a couple games. What do you see any difference from Casey Thompson and from his time at Texas with what he's doing at Nebraska now? Or has he largely kind of been the same guy that he was for the Longhorns?
Yeah, I think pretty similar to what you saw in the first half of the season last year at Texas before the thumb injury obviously made it a lot more difficult for him to throw the ball effectively. I think the thing for me that I was concerned about with Casey Thompson is when you go from playing in an offense with Bijan Robinson, who's one of the best backs in the country, and Xavier Worthy, who was a freshman All-American last year, and kind of the playmakers they had. Texas had their struggles on the O-line last year too, but I kind of wondered, like, in moving over to the Nebraska offense, kind of would they have the right pieces around him? And to their credit, I think the wide receivers they picked up in the transfer portal and the addition of Anthony Grant, I think he's actually got a pretty good supporting cast around him this year. That those pieces came together well, and you saw them, you've seen, especially last week, the ability to go score points when they need to. But yeah, I think he's been pretty solid. Hasn't turned it over a ton, but certainly when you're kind of playing with slim margins like Nebraska is, everyone kind of counts. But no, I think he's been pretty solid about kind of what I expected so far.
BC, Nebraska's running back situation has kind of sorted itself out. It was pretty crowded at the beginning of fall camp. You had 4 guys sort of vying for playing time. But right now it feels like Nebraska's got a 1-2 punch of Anthony Grant and A.J. Allen. Do you feel like through the first 3 games of this season that those guys sort of represent the upside of what Nebraska can do in its rushing attack this year?
Yeah, I think so. And one of the encouragements actually from last Saturday's game was I felt like the O-line paved a little bit more space for him too. Again, I know it was against Georgia Southern. I mean, obviously Georgia Southern won the game, so I want to down talk them. But defensively, they were outdone in the weight category up front and stuff like that. But the Nebraska's O-line did lean on them in that game, and that was a nice thing to see because I felt like the first 2 games it was more Anthony Grant making stuff out of nothing in a lot of cases, which is a credit to him. But we'd all wondered how that would like translate as you get into better competition against better athletes throughout this season. So I like their 2 backs. Now they got to show they can hold up through the grind that really begins, I think, now. I mean, there's some nice bye weeks dispersed through this season that are going to help them out. But that's the big question now. Which of those 2 guys is sort of that 3-month guy, who can hold up? Everything about Anthony Grant, though, has been impressive. Durable guy, gets extra yards after contact, can make people miss. And A.J. Allen seems like a Big Ten back at first glance, and he's only going to grow into, his frame more and more as just a first-year freshman. So that's an exciting part of what's happened.
Bruntz, Nebraska's leading receivers in the Northwestern game were Isaiah Garcia Castaneda And then Travis Vokalek had a pretty big day as well before going out with an injury. Since then, in the 2 games that have followed, I don't believe that Isaiah Garcia-Castaneda has another catch since his first 4 against Northwestern. And then they didn't have Travis Vokalek for a pair of weeks. Who's kind of picked up the slack for Nebraska at wide receiver? And have you seen some guys sort of emerge as pass catching options in this offense?
Yeah, I mean, they've kind of gone away from the tight end. I mean, the threat is there at least, and Chancellor Brewington's made some catches, but it feels like Marcus Washington's taking on a little bit of a bigger role in kind of stepping in for Garcia Castaneda. I mean, you kind of had the very sudden appearance of Oliver Martin the other night after he pretty much disappeared against North Dakota. So that kind of rotation and how they use guys is going to be interesting to follow, especially with, Mickey having head coaching responsibilities now. So I think Washington's been pretty good. I mean, he made that really nice catch towards the end along the sideline that got reviewed and overturned, I guess. But, for the most part, I think the wide receivers have done enough to kind of, give Nebraska a chance. I would like to see Garcia Castaneda get involved a little bit more, because I think he can be a guy that stretches the field a bit if they can, protect for Casey enough. So, I think overall that group has been pretty good. It's just been, kind of a rotating cast of characters. And I like the offense a heck of a lot more if they can get Travis Vokalek back. And it looked like, at least from poring over the practice film, that he's at least in a green jersey at practice now. So day to day.
Last year going into this game, and this question's kind of for everybody, so we'll just go around with it. Last year going into this game, the story was Nebraska was going to have to score at least 30-plus points in order to win. The expectation was the defense wasn't going to be able to hold Oklahoma down. Same kind of deal going into 2022, where Nebraska's defense playing even worse to start the season. But we don't really know what Oklahoma is at this point in time. They did have a nice win against Kent State after a slow start. Brunt, we'll start with you. Like, what is the magical point number that you think if Nebraska hits on Saturday, they have a chance of winning? It's like a dual-sided question. Like, the offense has to be able to put up X amount of points, but then that means the defense holds to one less. And that feels like the tougher number to figure out.
It feels like if Nebraska is going to have a chance, it's the offense is going to have to take care of its business. But at the same time, I don't know that that's the type of game that Nebraska really wants to get into with Oklahoma either. So I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth there. 30? I mean, 35? Like, how many points is this defense going to give up? I mean, that's the question.
Well, they gave up 45 to Georgia Southern.
I know. Are we 70? Like, what are we talking here? I mean, that's kind of where things are trending right now, but I don't know. I mean, I think the game plan,
it's just nicely in that 46 to 76 kind of range there,
Okay. Somewhere in there. A wide runway. I do think, though, that the game plan that Nebraska used last year against Oklahoma is kind of how they have to approach it, and pray to God that the defense holds up. I mean, I think that's just kind of what the recipe is, but I don't know. I mean, I just don't see a high-scoring game ending well for Nebraska in this matchup whatsoever.
I think you just gave us the subtitle for this episode. Pray to God the defense holds up. I think that's going to go over real well.
Light a candle for the defense. That's where we're at.
Max, from what you've seen from Oklahoma so far, I mean, obviously Dylan Gabriel is their new transfer de jure. What else do we know about this Oklahoma offense? What should we know about this Oklahoma offense?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, if Nebraska weren't working through its unique set of circumstances this week, I imagine there probably would be people who would point to last week's Oklahoma game and be like, man, we kind of got a chance this week, because if you turn that one on, Kent State did some good stuff, and it was 7-3 at halftime. They were able to get stops on Oklahoma's first 4 drives on offense, and Kent State was able to hold the ball for 20 minutes out of 30 in the first half. And so there's probably some similarities there in terms of what Nebraska needs to do. Now, that'll be an interesting challenge for Mark Whipple in terms of just how do you kind of figure out that right approach to control the game the way you want to. But I think for Oklahoma, Dylan Gabriel was a really important pickup. I think he's a really talented guy who can kind of put the ball wherever he wants. They're still kind of figuring out the Jeff Lebby offense a little bit because Jeff Lebby wants to go really, really, really fast. He's had, top 5 offenses in the past few places he's been. There's going to be a real high scoring potential with this team throughout the year, but they're still kind of working through the kinks a little bit early on. I think Eric Gray, the running back who came from Tennessee, is a really nice piece, and they have Marcus Major backing him up. I think they're going to have a pretty solid run game that Nebraska is going to have some good answers for because Eric Gray can hit explosive plays. And then at receiver, Marvin Mims is really special. He didn't get the ball enough last year in Lincoln Riley's offense, but he had a big game against Kent State. That receiver group, you have Theo Weiss back, but they didn't feel like they had great depth there at receiver and added some guys this offseason. It's not maybe as scary a group as when they had CeeDee Lamb and Marquise Brown and those guys. And then offensive line, they've dealt with some injuries. I'm trying to get some guys back this week, but offensively, it's a really fast system. Nebraska's going to need to make those pre-snap adjustments pretty quickly because they're going to go pretty fast tempo. But right now, Oklahoma not quite executing at the level that they probably will be in October, November.
BT, Nebraska's kind of one change that we know of a little bit defensively. Eric Shenander expected to work more with the safeties kind of moving forward. What have you seen from the safeties this year? It's largely been Miles Farmer and Marquise Buford. Buford had 2 interceptions last week, but it seems like Nebraska has kind of made that a point of emphasis to get a little more individual coaching for those guys. What have you seen from the safety spot this year?
Well, you've seen a drop-off. That's what you've seen. I mean, Deontay Williams and Markel Dismuke just had a steady hand back there. And we've said this all, even leading into this season, there was a worry about how quickly these guys, Farmer and Buford, could get up to the same speed as those other guys. I think maybe the ceiling of some of the guys on the roster could be higher. Like Buford, I think, can be a heck of a player in time, but you're watching him have to figure out the process through trial and error a little bit. And then Miles Farmer, more of a veteran guy, to be honest. And I just think in some key moments, it just hasn't been there for him. So it's got to arrive this Saturday. Like he's got to be that guy on, the 3rd and 8 play who makes a tackle in space, is in the right spot and keeps a guy a yard short of the sticks. Those are the type of little plays. They're not little. That are what Nebraska is going to need to pull off the upset here. It's going to have to be a complementary. The thing I remember about last year's game was Nebraska played rare. It was very rare for Nebraska, but they played very good complementary football in that game, actually. I know there was the field goal and the blocked extra point mishap and all that stuff, but they controlled the ball with some 3rd down conversions on offense early. And they kind of made it a game where you're looking up at the clock. You're like, okay, the first quarter's already gone. It's still 0-0. It was just time was their friend in that game. And I don't know how Nebraska is going to navigate that because both teams like to play kind of fast and stuff like that. So I don't know if Nebraska is going to want to try to slow it down a little bit on offense. But it's going to come down to that 3rd down conversion sheet to me. Can Nebraska have a good percentage there and keep Oklahoma way down there? And I think a big part of that's the safeties for Nebraska. Can they make plays on those money downs?
Brunts, where, if anything, or what, if anything, can Nebraska do differently with its front 7 at this point? I mean, is there really even realistically something that they can do outside of changing out personnel? And even then, it sort of feels like you've got your best guys or your thought to be best guys out there, save for Nick Henrich's injury. Do you foresee any kind of shift now that Mickey Joseph is the head coach with what they've been doing up front? You're right. Nebraska, I don't think has, been saving somebody, through the first 3 games. It's all of a sudden going to appear and change the picture there. I do wonder if you'll see a little bit more Kolerovic at inside backer than maybe what we've seen to this point. I mean, as BC kind of talked about, Buford at safety. I think Ernest Hausman's kind of in the same boat at inside backer, where you're being thrown into a really tough spot, being asked a lot
in terms of getting guys lined up and, coverage and things like that. And I think he's kind of been picked on when he's been in there. And I would expect Oklahoma to kind of try to do the same thing. But I think, if you're looking just strictly straight personnel, I mean, maybe Klarevic more inside to give you a little bit more veteran presence there. I think he's, he runs well. I think he covers okay at that nickel spot to move inside. But I mean, I think when you're kind of looking at matchups with Nebraska's defense and Oklahoma's offense, the play of the linebackers scares you a little bit and seems like a place where, an up-tempo offense can really get some stuff done in the passing game against those guys. I mean, I would be shocked if it's just not crossing routes for days on Saturday.
BC, real quickly, the special teams, last year's Oklahoma game is when the dam kind of broke. I mean, you had the missed field goals, you had the blocked extra point, you had the inability to sometimes flip the field. And that was when, the noise really got loud with the special teams, only to borderline erupt with the Michigan State game the following week. Where are you at with what Nebraska's done with their special teams so far? Obviously, Brian Bruschini having great success. Timmy Bleekrode missed a field goal to tie the game on Saturday night from 52 yards, but did hit an earlier one this season from, I believe, 40. Where you kind of sit with Nebraska's special teams right now with sort of the emphasis that they put on it in the offseason?
I mean, they are improved. And Brian Buschini's the big reason for that. You feel like they have a reliable punter now, so that's a help. It's hard to judge the place kicking game too much yet. Like, I know the numbers don't look good, but 2 of those misses have been beyond 50 yards, very difficult situations. So Timmy Bleekrode, I don't think has really gotten a chance. I mean, he missed the one early, like 37 yards, but he came back and hit like a 46-yarder, which was promising. So, I mean, this is the type of game where you would think you might see him a couple times, and we learn a little bit more if he can get a run going here, if he can hit a couple 40-yarders, stuff like that. Otherwise, the thing that's disappointing still to me is, like, never does Nebraska have a kick return where you're like, oh, that was interesting. They popped it out to the 40-yard line or something. And so, you'd love to see that one time where a guy just kind of breaks through a crease and gets it out to about midfield or something like that, or they just know when to return it and when not to. But otherwise, I don't want to just bash it. I think there are pieces that are better when they're not calling for onside kicks or just sort of weird stuff that popped up the first 2 or 3 weeks. I think the bones of it are all right, but at some point that return game needs to be a presence.
Max, neither coach from last year's game is going to be there on Saturday. Scott Frost is gone. Lincoln Riley is off to USC. Oklahoma had to make a hire this offseason. From what you've seen and with your contacts in the Big 12, how have things gone for Brent Venables since taking over there?
Yeah, I think that from day one, that's the one hire that, I mean, they explored other people, but this was the hire that the fan base could very, very easily get behind as kind of the one of us kind of guys that they felt like they needed. Obviously, someone that has Bob Stoops' endorsement, and Bob Stoops stepping in like he did after Lincoln Riley left, I think was huge for kind of holding the family together there and reminding everybody that this is bigger than one guy. And I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but that Lincoln Riley divorce is still pretty contentious. People still in Oklahoma, they have some thoughts on the guy. Brent Venables, I think has built a really good staff. As a guy that obviously this is his first time being a head coach, and there's been, the Cale Gundy thing in fall camp was obviously pretty startling just in terms of like pretty big issue to deal with on their end early on there. But I think I like what he put together in terms of his staff. I think Lebby, with his experience in the Big 12, working under his father-in-law, Art Briles at Baylor, I think he has a pretty good sense of how to build an offense that can be really explosive. How that complements a Brent Venables defense will be interesting to see how that evolves over time. And as Venables gets the pieces he needs on defense to really be dominant as he was at Clemson, I think that might take a little bit of time. But they're recruiting at a really high level. And I think that people are pretty happy. Obviously he comes with kind of that blend of his experience under Bob Stoops, his experience under Bill Snyder, and then a ton of experience from working with Dabo Swinney and Clemson. And so I know he's brought, in coming back to Oklahoma, he's brought a pretty heavy Dabo flavor to the way that he's trying to run that organization and build it up and make it bigger and all that. But it seems like it's off to a pretty good start just in terms of what people expected. And just with where Oklahoma's at, like obviously they're in the top 10 right now, but I don't know that anybody feels that they are necessarily like the automatic Big 12 champ this year. I think the conference looks pretty competitive. There's probably going to be a bunch of teams this year that go 5-4 in league play, and Oklahoma's got a pretty tough road ahead here. They've got K-State next week. So this is a big game for them in terms of just showing the progress they've made here in the first month.
All right, good stuff. Time for oddly specific predictions. We'll start with Michael Bruntz.
We had a rough week last week in the old predictions department. Nebraska did not get 3 sacks. No. I don't even think they got 3 pressures.
It's possible.
Yeah.
You don't get Big Macs for pressures.
No. It's yeah. You get nothing. You get maybe like the burnt hash browns. That's what you get for pressures. I think Brian hitting on Timmy Bleekrode. I'm going to try to go with Bleekrode again. I see a 3 field goal day. I see a 27-yarder. I think he hits from 31, and I think he bangs one in from 42. So good day for Timmy Bleekrode. I don't know what that means for Nebraska's chances of winning if they're trying to field goal Oklahoma to death, but I think Timmy has a good day.
All right, BC?
Nebraska is going to get the football to start the game, and there's going to be a lot of fire in the stadium. Mickey's first game as the interim head man, and they're gonna march down the field in 7 plays and score a touchdown. However, on defense, throughout the game, they're going to give up 4 third down conversions on catches to Drake Stoops.
Okay.
Drake Stoops, if you remember, first off, Drake Stoops seems like one of those guys who's just going to burn Nebraska on third down. Although I was looking at Oklahoma's only 106 nationally in third down offense. I know we're only 2 games into the season, but they've scuffled a bit there. But Drake Stoops he made a big play on Nebraska last year in that 23-16 game that kind of turned things. So I think he'll get loose for a few.
BT and I have a similar idea. I have Nebraska winning the coin toss, getting the ball to start with. And on the game's 3rd play, Trey Palmer breaks a touchdown on a miscommunication on Oklahoma's defense. He's able to get open. He houses it from, let's say, because Nebraska will attempt to return the kick and be short of their own 25. Let's say it's a 77-yard touchdown for Trey Palmer. Everyone is fired up in Memorial Stadium, and those are Nebraska's only points in the first half. 7 points in the first half for Nebraska, and it comes on the first drive of the game. Max, do you see what we're doing here?
I do, yeah. Man, I really want to meet you guys at the creativity level you're at here. Okay, do you remember last year a fellow by the name of DJ Graham?
Yeah,
he had the big interception.
Good catch.
Right?
One of the best picks of the year.
And the Nebraska fans were taunting him because he made an incredible play and he should have batted the ball away.
That's right.
Falling sideways in the air.
Then I believe he sold T-shirts of that play and really was a star for about a week there. I will say DJ Graham has 1 pass breakup in the game, but DJ Graham does not have a SportsCenter top 10 play.
Okay. Poor DJ Graham. Might as well just stay home, right?
Or maybe he'll just get even more famous than ever. I don't know.
Maybe he'll catch one-handed with his other hand this time or something.
We know who Max's pick to click won't be, and it won't be DJ Graham. But do you have a player, Max, that you expect will play well on Saturday?
A pick to click. Let's see. I will take. How about I'll take Garcia Castaneda. I think it's time to get him a little bit more involved in the offense, and I think it's I could see him having some success against an Oklahoma secondary that really wasn't very good last year and is still kind of trying to rebuild a little bit under Venables.
All right, BC.
Real quick, by the way, Drake Stoops only has 5 catches so far this year. So if he catches 4 third down receptions, that's pretty darn good. But that would happen in Nebraska, that sort of thing. Anyway, Trey Palmer is my pick to click. I keep saying this, and I think it could happen this week. He's going to get loose on that home run play at one point.
Third play of the game.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Like 77 yards.
Like I could see it being like 55 yards or something like that. But I do think him and Casey have been close to hooking up on that type of play, and maybe this week. But he'll get the ball a lot.
Brunt?
I'll go with Marcus Washington. I think he's trending in a positive direction. I think you have the added juice of the former Texas, Oklahoma stuff. So I'll go with him. And yeah, that's the direction I'm going. It's a tough one this week. I don't. I'm tempted to pick somebody for Oklahoma, but we'll go Marcus Washington.
Schaefer, you got a defensive player?
Yeah, I do actually. I'm going to go with Isaac Gifford. I think he's going to lead Nebraska in tackles with 15 stops for Isaac Gifford, which might tell you the kind of day it could be in Lincoln. But 15 tackles, Isaac Gifford picked to click. All right, score prediction time. I am fascinated because I have no idea what any of you are going to do. I'm going to go ahead and start. Nebraska loses 37-13 to Oklahoma on Saturday. BC.
I think it's going to be more of an offensive game. And I'm going to say Oklahoma 45, Nebraska 28. And I'm really curious if Bruns has done the math to figure out his 3 field goals to work out a score properly.
we like to try to keep Bruns honest. We're going to go right to Bruns right now.
That's right.
I don't know that it's going to be that offensive on Saturday. It might be offensive, but I think Oklahoma wins. I'm going to say 34-22, and I think Nebraska punches one in late to make it scroll a little better.
There we go.
To have some good feelings heading into the bye week.
Max, are you familiar with the scroll phenomenon that Bruns has been pushing for 5 years?
No, let's hear it.
Basically, that you get late scores to make a game scroll well on the ESPN scroll. It's like Nebraska had the best example is Nebraska-Penn State in 2017. Nebraska lost that game by probably 50 points, but they tacked on a late Jack Stoll touchdown to make that one look okay on the scroll.
Yeah. Tanner Lee had a day that day, didn't he?
In the fourth quarter, he did. Yeah.
Fourth quarter.
That's what he's talking about. 56-44 was the final score. So if someone looking at it, it's like, oh, that was an interesting game.
Man, that was really a shootout.
63-10 type of game.
It really felt like Saquon Barkley could have had 5,000 yards in that game if Penn State would have chosen to go that way. But
yeah.
All right, Max, your score prediction for Saturday.
All right. Here's the thing. So last weekend I went to Alabama, Texas, and I thought that it was going to be the kind of game that we were talking about here, right? In terms of a blowout. So I'm going to take Oklahoma 20-19. And I'm just gonna go under here. I don't really believe that, but I'm just gonna take it and try to contrast what you guys are doing here. That would be, Nebraska finding a way to lose by a point would be pretty tough. But I kind of expect that there's just gonna be a little bit of a bump this week. That guys are gonna play hard for Chins and the rest of the staff, and that they're gonna play hard for Mickey, and that. It doesn't magically solve all your problems, but I could see this game, being competitive, or like you said, maybe there is that fourth quarter push there that keeps it close.
I don't know if Nebraska fans handle the interim coach's first game being a 1-score loss right now? Is this a thing that the fan base is going to handle well?
Wouldn't peak Nebraska football be Nebraska somehow winning this game by 3 points?
Sure.
And then just the newspaper headline says like curse is broken or something.
Yeah, like you just suffered through four plus years of close losses, and then you just pull through in the first opportunity.
Look, it's not inconceivable. I know I have Oklahoma winning by like 24 points, but it wouldn't be the weirdest thing. We just saw Appalachian State knock off Texas A&M on the road. college football is wild for a reason. Nebraska has rarely been the reason that it is wild.
So wait, I'm curious, like, how have you guys modified at this point your expectations of like what this record's going to look like now? Because me personally, I was kind of more in the like, I thought they would win 6 and kind of be right in that kind of awkward spot there of what do you do? And I'm not saying if you don't win your non-conference games, it's hard to get to 6, right? But I'm curious what you guys, like, if you were to redo kind of your August prediction now, like what, based on going interim the rest of the year now, like what would you think this thing ends up at?
I think Nebraska can still win 4 or 5 games. I just think this is a really tough first week matchup. That schedule that includes Indiana, then at Rutgers on Friday, at Purdue, the bye week, and then Illinois. If you could, you could sell me on Nebraska winning all 4, going 3-1. At worst, going 2-2. I just think they have more talent than they've played with so far this season. So I don't expect Mickey to struggle necessarily. I just think this first matchup is really tough on a quick turnaround. But I think that middle part of the schedule, they can win some of those games. And then, look, Iowa and Wisconsin are not nearly as good as they have been in the past couple years. So those games feel more winnable now. The schedule sets up that Nebraska could stack a few wins. I don't necessarily look for a 6-3 finish. So I guess. BT, Brunts, what do you guys think?
I think I had them 7-5 at the beginning of the year was my prediction. And now honestly, I would say probably 4-8 or 5-7. That's probably my guess. Yeah, I think I've dropped it a couple, and it's a defense. I haven't seen anything from the data points so far to suggest they've got the answers there. Now that football's weird, so, sometimes you find something and it looks way different than everybody expects it to, and maybe this is the week that happens. So I always have an open mind about that. But what we've seen so far, when you don't have a defense that can stop the run, it's very hard to have any faith.
Absolutely. I would just say the defense being what it is right now, unless there's like significant changes coming out of the bye week in terms of how they play, like I don't see them being able to stay on. I think I had 7-5 at the start of the year is what I'd said, and they get some work done in that middle section. Maybe you can surprise some people late, but not. You're not going to beat Wisconsin and Iowa as bad as they are with the defense the way that it is right now.
All right. Any closing thoughts for anybody? Anything you want to get off your chest before we end this podcast? No one has anything. Yeah, they have no confessions. They have no exciting news facts or anything that they can bring to the table.
It feels like you know something about one of us and you want us to come clean with it.
What are you hinting at?
I got nothing. I just wanted someone to get us out of here, and I guess I'll do it. All right, be sure to check out Husker247 right now. Obviously, plenty of coverage going on with Nebraska. Full bore into a coaching search here on September 15th. Wild times. We're going to have to change up our coverage. It'll be different for us, but we're going to have stuff.
I really thought you guys were just going to be asking me all about Matt Campbell and Chris Kleiman and those guys today, but that's
different
cool.
Podcast, Max.
Different day.
Yeah, you're coming back.
That's the Husker247 HypeCast coaching search edition. We'll let you know when that one happens. But
let's right get now
we're trying to remind people there's still 9 games left in this season, despite not having a head coach.
Yeah, that's right.
So you can get all of our coverage at Husker247.com. We'll have more podcasts as well. There'll be another Sunday side session. Damon Benning will be joining to break down Nebraska's game against Oklahoma. So that'll be on Sunday as well. Of course, plenty of game coverage for Mickey Joseph's first game as Nebraska's interim coach on Saturday as the Huskers take on Oklahoma. For Max Olson, Brian Christopherson, Michael Brunts, I am Mike Schaefer, and we'll catch you next time here on the Husker247 HypeCast.